Lideho pressed his face against the cold metal wall and listened to the silence. A kind of silence that meant he was alone. The kind that meant his crew had left him behind. His breath made small clouds in the freezing air of the alien ship. The engineering bay stretched out before him like a metal tomb filled with strange machines and pipes that curved in ways that hurt his eyes to follow. Everything was wrong here. The walls were too smooth. The lights were too blue. Even the air tasted different. 3 hours ago, he had been working alongside his crewmates from the stellar horizon. Captain Kimbo Ra had found this dead ship floating in space like a metal ghost. She called it easy money. Salvage rights meant they could strip everything valuable and sell it at the next port. Deho had been excited. He always loved seeing new technology. His tools felt good in his hands as he worked to disconnect power cables and remove computer cores. The alien ship was bigger than anything he had seen before. Its hull was black as space itself, covered in scars from some old battle, but then the alarm started. Red lights began flashing everywhere. The ship's computers woke up from their long sleep and began speaking in a language that sounded like growling, mixed with metal scraping metal. The universal translator on his belt could only catch a few words. Intruders. Defense. Eliminate. Bora's voice had crackled through his communicator. Deho, we need more time to get the good stuff. The ship is trying to lock us in. You need to keep the power systems busy while we finish up. He should have known something was wrong when she said his name like that. Soft and sad, like she was saying goodbye. I can reroute the main power grid, he had replied. Give me 10 minutes and I can shut down the defense systems completely. No time, Bora said. Just keep them distracted. We will come back for you. But they did not come back. Instead, heavy metal doors slammed shut all around the engineering section. Emergency barriers dropped from the ceiling. The sound of his crewmates running echoed through the halls, getting further away with each second. Then came the worst sound of all. The deep rumble of ship engines powering up, the vibration through the floor that meant the stellar horizon was preparing to leave. Deho ran to the nearest window and pressed his hands against the thick glass. Outside in the black of space, he could see his ship. The stellar horizon looked so small next to the alien vessel. Its lights were already turning toward the jump point. Bora, he called into his communicator. Bora, I am still here. The doors are locked. I cannot get out, Static answered him. Captain, please respond. I need help getting these barriers open. More static. He watched through the window as the stellar horizon's engines flared bright white. The ship turned away from him like it was looking at something more interesting. Then it stretched into a line of light and disappeared into hyperspace. They were gone. Deho stood at the window for a long time, staring at the empty space where his ship had been. The alien vessel drifted silently around a dying star that burned orange and red in the distance. He was alone on a dead ship in the middle of nowhere, but the ship was not completely dead. As he turned away from the window, he heard something that made his blood turn cold. A sound like singing but deeper, like howling but with intelligence behind it. It echoed through the metal halls from somewhere deep inside the ship. The universal translator on his belt chirped softly. The display showed broken words. Hunt. Pack, feed, guard. Something was alive on this ship. Something that howled. Deho picked up his tool bag with shaking hands. He had been a mechanic for 12 years. He had fixed engines on mining stations and life support systems on colony ships. He had crawled through the guts of machines that other people said could not be repaired. But he had never been trapped on an alien ship with creatures that howled. In the dark, the howling came again, closer this time. It was answered by another howl from a different direction. Then another. They were talking to each other in their strange language. Coordinating, planning. The engineering bay suddenly felt very large and very empty. The alien machines hummed quietly around him, their purpose unknown. Strange symbols glowed on control. Panels pulsing like heartbeats. The air was getting colder. Deho looked at the nearest control panel and made a decision. If he was going to die on this ship, he would not die hiding in a corner. He was a mechanic. He fixed things. Maybe he could fix his way out of this mess. The control panel was different from human technology, but the basic principles were the same. Power flowed from one place to another. Machines needed fuel and maintenance. Systems had backup systems. He just needed to figure out how everything connected. He opened his tool bag and got to work. The first thing he noticed was that the ship was running on emergency power. Most of the systems were shut down to save energy. Life support was barely functioning. The artificial gravity was weak. No wonder it was so cold. The second thing he noticed was that someone had damaged the ship on purpose. Not battle damage from outside, but sabotage from within. Power cables had been cut. Computer cores had been removed. Fuel lines had been drained. Someone had tried to kill this ship from the inside. The howling came again, much closer now. The universal translator was picking up more words. Scent, strange, investigate, hungry. Daeho's hands moved faster over the alien controls. He found what looked like a power distribution panel and began tracing the connections. If he could restore power to this section, maybe he could get the doors open. Maybe he could find a way to call for help, but as he worked, he began to understand something that made his stomach feel hollow. The creatures on this ship were not just hunting him. They were protecting something. The howls were not random. They were patrol calls. Guard rotations. Whatever was on this ship, it had been left here to watch over something important. Something worth dying for. And now he was trapped with them in the dark, cold halls of a dying ship, with no way home and no one coming to save him. The howling stopped. In the sudden silence. Daeho could hear his own heartbeat and the quiet hum of alien machines. Somewhere in the distance, claws clicked against metal floors. They were coming. He bent over the control panel and worked faster. The first time Daeho saw them, he thought he was dying. 4 shapes moved through the shadows of the main corridor like liquid darkness. They were tall as men, but moved on 4 legs. Their fur was the color of deep blue metal, and their eyes glowed yellow like small suns in the dim light of the emergency systems. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Daeho pressed himself against the wall and tried not to breathe. He had been working for 6 hours straight, moving from one control panel to another, slowly bringing power back to different sections of the ship. His hands were cut from sharp alien metal edges. His clothes were torn, but he had managed to restore heat to 3 decks and get the air recycling systems working again. Now, he wished he had stayed hidden in the engineering bay. The largest creature stopped and lifted its head. Its nose twitched as it tested the air. The others spread out in a pattern that looked planned, practiced. They had done this many times before. The universal translator on his belt whispered broken words. New scent. Warm blood, not pack. The large one looked directly at him. Daeho had never seen eyes like that before. They were intelligent, ancient, tired. These were not simple animals. They were people, different people, but people all the same. The creature spoke in its growling language. The translator struggled with the words. You, small one? Why do you wake the dead ship? Daeho's mouth was too dry to speak. His heart hammered against his ribs like it wanted to escape. But something in those yellow eyes made him find his voice. I am trying to fix it, he said quietly. The creatures looked at each other. One of them, smaller and faster looking, moved closer. Its translator came clearer. Fix? You understand the machine spirits? I understand machines, Daeho said. I am a mechanic. The large one tilted its head. Mechanic, builder, fixer of broken things. Yes, they formed a circle around him, but they did not attack. Instead, they seemed to be thinking. The largest one, clearly their leader, sat back on its haunches like a giant dog. But its posture was all dignity and authority. I am Kale, it said through the translator. Alpha of this pack. These are Zira, Nyx, and Vex. We are the last guardians of the Valdrak vessel Eternal Promise. Daeho bowed his head slightly. It seemed like the right thing to do. I am Lee Daeho. I was left here by accident. Kale's ears flattened against his head. No accident. We watched your packmates seal the barriers. They offered you as tribute to buy their escape. The words hit Deho like cold water. He had known it in his heart, but hearing it spoken made it real. But Aura had not planned to come back for him. She had used him as bait. They are not my pack, he said quietly. No, agreed Kale. A true pack does not abandon its members. Zira, who seemed to be second in command, stepped forward. She was sleeker than Kale, built for speed. You have brought warmth back to our ship. The cold was killing us slowly. Why do you help us? Deho looked around at the 4 alien faces watching him. Their expressions were hard to read, but he could see curiosity there and hope. Because things should work, he said. When I see something broken, I want to fix it. That is who I am. Nyx, the smallest of the 4, moved like a scout, quick and careful. The ship has been dying for many seasons. We have tried to maintain it, but we do not understand the deep systems. Only the warriors knew such things, and they are all dead. How long have you been here? Deho asked. Vex, who had been silent until now, spoke in a voice like grinding. Stone. Since the war ended. Since our world burned. Since we became the last. The weight of those words settled over them all like a heavy blanket. These creatures were not just guardians. They were survivors. The last of their kind, trapped on a dying ship with no way home. What are you guarding? Deho asked. Kale stood and began walking toward the deeper parts of the ship. Come, if you are truly a fixer of broken things, you should see what we protect. They walked through corridors that were slowly warming as Deho's repairs took effect. The ship was enormous. Room after room stretched out in all directions. Most were empty now, but Deho could see places where furniture had been. Where people had lived. This was a colony ship, he realized. The last colony ship? Zira corrected. When the Terran Alliance burned our worlds, some of us escaped. Families, children, elders, they were going to find a new home among the stars. What happened to them? Pirates, Kale said simply. They attacked us 3 years into the journey. Took everyone they could sell as slaves, killed the rest. Only the military pack survived to fight them off, but the damage was done. The ship was crippled. The civilians were gone. They reached a massive door that was sealed with heavy locks. Ancient symbols covered its surface. Even without translation, Deho could tell they were warnings. The pirates missed this, Nyx said. They were looking for people and goods to steal. They did not understand what was truly valuable. Kale placed his paw on a scanner. The door opened with a deep grinding sound. Inside was a room full of light. Thousands of glowing cylinders stretched from floor to ceiling. Each one contained something precious, seeds, genetic samples, memory crystals, art, music, everything that made the Valdrak people who they were. The soul of our race, Vex said quietly. Everything we were, everything we might become again someday. Deho stared in wonder. You have been guarding this alone? For 8 years, Kale confirmed, waiting for a miracle. Waiting for someone to come who could help us bring the ship back to life. The life support systems are failing, Zira added. We have perhaps a few more months before the preservation units shut down. Then everything dies with us. Deho walked among the glowing cylinders. His mechanic's eye could see the connections, the power feeds, the cooling systems. It was all incredibly complex, but it was still just machinery. Complicated machinery, but machinery he could understand. I can fix this, he said. The 4 wolves looked at him with something like worship in their eyes. You can save our people's future? Nyx asked. I can save the equipment, Deho said carefully. Whether that saves your people is up to you. Kale patted over to him. Up close, Deho could see scars in his blue fur. Old wounds from the battle with the pirates. This creature had fought to the death to protect his people's legacy. Will you help us, Deho? Kale asked. Will you be pack with us? Deho looked around at the 4 alien faces. They were predators, hunters, creatures that could kill him without effort. But they were also the last guardians of a dead civilization. The final keepers of hope. He had been abandoned by his own kind, but maybe he could find a new kind. I will Help you, he said, for the first time since he had been trapped on the ship. The howling that echoed through the corridors sounded like singing. 2 weeks passed before Deho learned the ship was falling into the sun. He discovered it by accident while working on the navigation systems. The numbers on the alien display made no sense at first. Then he ran them through his portable computer and felt his stomach drop. The Eternal Promise was losing orbit. Every day it drifted a little closer to the dying orange star. In maybe 4 months they would all burn up together. Did you know? He asked Kale when he found the pack leader in what used to be the ship's bridge. Kale was lying on a raised platform, watching the star grow slowly larger through the main viewing screen. His yellow eyes reflected the orange light. We have known for some time. Why did you not tell me? Would it have changed your work? Deho thought about that. No, but I could have planned better. Then it does not matter when you knew, Kale said. But his voice was sad. We are guardians, Deho. We guard until we die. That has always been our way. That is stupid, Deho said, then immediately felt bad for speaking so directly to the pack leader. But Kale's ears pricked up with interest. Explain. Guardians should keep things safe. If you die, the things you guard die too. That is not protection. That is just dying together. Kale was quiet for a long moment. What do you suggest? We fix the engines. We move the ship somewhere safe, then we guard it properly. The main engines have been dead for years. The fuel systems were destroyed in the pirate attack. Deho smiled. Then we build new ones. That afternoon, he gathered the pack in the main engineering bay. Spread across the floor were the parts he had been collecting. Pieces of human technology from his toolkit. Salvaged alien components from damaged systems. Cables and power cells and computer cores. This is impossible, Zira said, looking at the collection. These parts are from different worlds, different technologies. They cannot work together. Everything works together if you understand the principles, Deho replied. He picked up a human power cell and an alien circuit board. This makes electricity. This uses electricity. The details are different, but the function is the same. Nyx moved closer, her scout's curiosity taking over. Show us. For the next several hours, Deho demonstrated basic engineering principles. How power flowed through circuits. How mechanical systems transferred force. How computers processed information. The pack watched with growing fascination as he connected human and alien components into working systems. Your people think very differently than ours, Vex observed. We see systems as they are. You see what they could become? That is because I break things all the time, Deho said with a laugh. When you break something, you have to understand how it really works to fix it. We do not break things, Kale said. We maintain them exactly as they were designed. Sometimes the design is wrong. The pack exchanged looks. This was clearly a new concept for them. The Eternal Promise was designed to carry families to a new world, Deho continued. But now it carries genetic samples and memories. Different cargo, different needs. We should modify the ship to do its new job better. Over the following days, they worked together in ways that surprised them all. The Valdrek were careful and precise. They followed instructions exactly and never made the same mistake twice. Deho was creative and adaptable. He found solutions to problems they did not even know existed. Slowly, a plan took shape. They could not repair the main engines, but they could build smaller ones using parts from throughout the ship. They could not restore the original navigation system, but they could create a new one using human computers and alien sensors. The work was hard and dangerous. Several times they nearly electrocuted themselves working with alien power systems. Once, Zero was trapped under a heavy component when a lifting mechanism failed. Deho spent 3 hours carefully cutting through metal to free her while the others held the weight. Why do you risk yourself for us? She asked afterward as he bandaged cuts on her leg. Because you are my pack now. He said simply. It was during the 3rd week that they accessed the ship's memory core. Deho had been trying to find technical manuals for the ship's original systems. Instead, he found something much more valuable. The core contained not just data, but preserved consciousness patterns. Recordings of minds that had lived and died on the ship. The first voice they heard was ancient and wise. "I am Elder Rene," the voice said through the ship's speakers, chief curator of the Living Memory Project. "If you are hearing this, then the Guardians still live and the precious cargo survives." Kale dropped to all fours in a posture of deep respect. "Elder, we have maintained our watch." "Good, my children, but tell me, why do I sense a strange mind among you? One that thinks in patterns I do not recognize?" "We have been joined by a human," Kale explained. "A fixer of broken things. He has brought new life to our dying ship." There was a long pause, then Renee spoke again, her voice filled with wonder. "A human, how curious. I have studied their species from the records. They are remarkable creatures. They see solutions, where others see only problems." "Elder," Zira said, "the ship is falling toward the star. We need guidance." "Then you must do what we never could," Renee said. "You must change. The Valdrak way is to preserve and maintain. But preservation without adaptation is just a slow death. This human understands something we forgot. Sometimes, to save something, you must transform it." Over the following days, Elder Renee became their teacher and guide. She had been the keeper of their people's wisdom, and now she shared it freely. She told them stories of Valdrak history. She explained the deep philosophy behind their guardian traditions. She helped them understand why change was so hard for their people. "We nearly went extinct once before," she explained. "A great plague killed most of our ancestors. The survivors were so afraid of losing what remained that they stopped taking risks. They stopped exploring. They stopped growing. It took thousands of years to recover." "Is that why you fear change?" Deho asked. "Yes, but also why we must embrace it now. The old ways brought us to extinction. Perhaps new ways will lead to rebirth." Working with Elder Rene's guidance, they began to see the ship not as a museum to be preserved, but as a seed to be planted. The genetic samples were not just memories of the dead. They were the foundation for new life. The cultural records were not just history. They were lessons for the future. We need to find a world, Kale realized, not just to hide on, but to grow on. First, we need to survive long enough to look for one. Deho reminded them the jury-rigged engines were finally ready for testing. They were not beautiful like the original Valdrak designs. They were a patchwork of human engineering and alien technology held together with determination and hope. "Will they work?" Nix asked. "Only one way to find out," Deho said. He activated the control sequence. Deep in the ship, the hybrid engines came to life with a sound like thunder mixed with music. The Eternal Promise shuddered and began to move. On the bridge, they watched the orange star slowly slide to one side of the viewing screen. "We are free," Vex said in amazement. "We are mobile," Deho corrected. "Now we can go looking for a real home." Kale placed a massive paw on Deho's shoulder. "You have given us something we had forgotten, small packmate. You have given us a future." Through the ship's speakers, Elder Rene's voice carried a sound that might have been laughter. "The student becomes the teacher. The guardian becomes the explorer. The end becomes the beginning." As the Eternal Promise turned away from the dying star and began its journey toward the open galaxy, Deho felt something he had not experienced since his abandonment. He felt like he belonged somewhere. The pack was no longer just surviving. They were learning to live. The accident happened on a Tuesday, though Deho had long since stopped counting. Earth days, they were installing new power relays in the lower decks when a support beam gave way. Zero was underneath, connecting cables, when the metal crashed. Down on her back leg, the sound of breaking bone echoed through the corridor. Like a gunshot, her scream was not like any sound Deho had ever heard. It was pain and fear and rage all mixed together. The other pack members rushed to help, but the beam was too heavy. Sparks flew from damaged power lines. Emergency lights flashed red warnings. "Do not move her!" Deho shouted over the noise. Moving could make it worse. He crawled under the twisted metal to examine Zira's injury. What he saw made his stomach turn. Her left rear leg was crushed below the knee. Bone showed white through torn fur and flesh. "Can you save it?" Kale asked. His voice was steady, but Deho could hear the fear underneath. "I do not know," Deho admitted. "I am not a doctor." "You fix machines," Vex said desperately. "Can you fix her?" Deho looked at Zira's pain-filled eyes. She was trying not to whimper, but he could see the agony there. In that moment, he made a decision that would change everything. "Get me to the medical bay," he said, "and bring my engineering tools." The Valdrek medical systems were advanced, but designed for routine care. They could heal cuts and cure infections, but major injuries were beyond their capability. Deho spent hours studying the medical database while Zira lay unconscious on the treatment table. "The leg cannot be saved," he told the pack finally. "The damage is too severe, but I have an idea." He showed them his plan on the medical display. Where Zira's natural leg ended, he would attach a mechanical replacement. Not just a simple prosthetic, but a fully integrated cybernetic limb that would connect directly to her nervous system. "This is madness," Nick said. "We are not machines." "You are right," Deho replied. "You are better than machines. You can adapt, you can learn." A machine limb connected to a Valdrak mind could do things no natural leg ever could. Kale studied the plans carefully. "You have never done this before." "No, but I understand how nerves carry signals. They are like electrical wires in a living body. And I understand how to build mechanical systems that respond to electrical signals." "What?" "If you fail, then Zira will have 3 legs instead of 4. But she will be alive." The surgery took 18 hours. Deho worked with tools designed for electronics repair, guided by medical scanners and his own understanding of both biological and mechanical systems. The pack took turns assisting, learning as they helped. The hardest part was connecting the mechanical nerves to Zira's natural ones. Each connection had to be perfect. Too loose and the signals would not pass through. Too tight and he could damage her nervous system permanently. When it was over, Deho collapsed in exhaustion. The cybernetic leg gleamed silver against Zira's blue fur. It looked alien and natural at the same time. "Will it work?" Kale asked. "We will know when she wakes up." Zira opened her eyes 3 days later. The first thing she tried to do was stand. The mechanical leg responded perfectly, supporting her weight as if it had always been part of her body. "How do you feel?" Deho asked. Zira took a few careful steps. Then a few more. Then she began to run, her new leg moving in perfect harmony with her natural ones. "I feel strong," she said with wonder. Different, but strong. Over the following weeks, they discovered that the cybernetic leg could do things no natural limb could manage. It never tired. It could grip surfaces too smooth for claws. It could interface directly with the ship's computer systems. "You have given me something better than what I lost," Zira told Deho. "You have given me new possibilities." But the real change was not in Zira's leg. It was in how the pack began to think about themselves and their future. "You see us differently than we see ourselves," Elder Rene observed during one of their planning sessions. "We thought of ourselves as guardians of the past. You see us as builders of the future." "Because that is what you are," Deho said. "You have the genetic codes to rebuild your entire species. You have the cultural knowledge to teach them who they are. But most importantly, you have the ability to learn and grow." He showed them his personal logs, recordings he had made of. His sister Park Hyunsu back on Earth, she was a terraforming engineer who specialized in making dead worlds capable of supporting life. "My sister taught me something important," he explained as they watched videos of her work. "She said that technology should serve life, not replace it. When we build something, we should ask, does this help life grow?" The pack listened as Hyunsu explained her philosophy of planetary engineering. How she worked with natural systems instead of against them. How she saw every dead world as a garden waiting to bloom. "Your sister is wise," Kale said. "She thinks like a gardener, not a conqueror." That is what we need to become, Deho realized. Not just guardians of Valdrek genetic material, but gardeners of new worlds. We need to find places where your People can grow again. This led to the great project that consumed the next several months. Working together, human creativity and Valdrak precision, they began to redesign the Eternal Promise from a preservation ship into something entirely new. They converted storage bays into laboratories where genetic samples could be studied, and improved, they built manufacturing systems that could produce everything needed to establish a colony. They created educational programs that could teach new generations of Valdrak about their heritage while preparing them for an uncertain future. Most importantly, they designed systems that could adapt and evolve. Nothing was built to last forever unchanged. Everything was built to grow and improve over time. "We are not the same pack that guarded this ship for 8 years," Vex observed as they tested their latest modifications. "No," Kale agreed. "We have become something new. Something that never existed before." Deho looked around at his packmates. Zira with her gleaming mechanical leg, Nyx with her new understanding of adaptive engineering, Vex with his growing knowledge of genetic cultivation, Kale with his expanding vision of what leadership could mean. They were no longer just the last survivors of a dead civilization. They were the first members of something that had never existed before. A fusion of human innovation and Valdrak, wisdom that could accomplish things neither species could achieve alone. "What do we call ourselves?" Nyx asked. Deho thought about it. "How about the Iron Pack?" The name felt right. They were still Valdrak in their hearts and minds, but they were also something harder and stronger than their ancestors. They were survivors who had learned to thrive. "The Iron Pack," Kale repeated, testing the sound of it. "I like it. We are not just preservers of the old ways. We are forgers of new ones." Through the ship's speakers, Elder Renee's voice carried approval and pride. "My children have grown beyond even my hopes. You honor our ancestors by becoming more than they ever dreamed possible." As the Eternal Promise continued its journey through space, now equipped with sensors searching for suitable worlds, Deho felt a deep satisfaction. He had started as an abandoned mechanic with nothing but his tools and his determination. Now he was part of something greater, a family that chose each other, a pack that built instead of destroyed, a team that saw problems as opportunities to grow. The future was uncertain, but for the first time since his abandonment, Deho was excited to see what it would bring. The human fleet appeared on their sensors like a constellation of angry stars. 6 months had passed since they escaped the dying sun. 6 months of traveling between systems, searching for a world suitable for Valdrak colonization. The Eternal Promise had become something wonderful in that time. Part spaceship, part laboratory. Part home for a family that grew closer every day. Deho was in the hydroponics bay when the alarm sounded. He had been teaching Nyx how to modify earth plants to grow in Valdrak soil conditions. The work was delicate and fascinating. They were creating new forms of life that had never existed before. Unknown vessels approaching, Zira's voice came through the communication system. Multiple ships, human design. Deho's blood went cold. He ran to the bridge where the pack was already assembled. On the main screen, he could see 12 human ships in standard military formation. Leading them was a heavy cruiser that he recognized. "That is the Stellar Dragon," he said quietly. "Flagship of the salvage fleet, Commander Choi Sung-min's ship." "Are they friends of yours?" Kale asked. "I do not know." "Sung-min is a fair man, but he follows regulations strictly. If he thinks we are pirates or smugglers..." The communication board lit up with an incoming message. Commander Choi's weathered face appeared on the screen. He looked exactly as Deho remembered. Gray hair, serious eyes, and an expression that never showed what he was thinking. "Unknown vessel. This is Commander Choi Sung-min of the Terran Salvage Fleet. You are operating in restricted space without proper identification. Prepare to be boarded for inspection." "Commander," Deho replied, stepping into view of the camera. "This is Lee Deho, formerly of the merchant vessel Stellar Horizon." Choi's eyes widened in surprise. "Deho? We received reports that you were killed during a salvage operation 6 months ago." Captain Kimbi-Ora filed a death certificate. But Ora left me to die, Deho said simply. But I found a new family. Kale moved into camera range, his massive form and intelligent eyes clearly visible. Troy's hand moved toward his weapon controls. But he stopped when he saw that Deho showed no fear. "Commander, I request permission to come aboard your ship," Deho said. "I have much to explain, and you will want to see proof before you believe it." 2 hours later, Deho stood in the conference room of the Stellar Dragon. Around the table, sat Commander Choi, his senior officers, and 3 members of the Iron Pack. The humans stared at the Valdrek with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Let me understand this correctly," Commander Choi said slowly. "You were abandoned on a derelict alien ship. Instead of being killed by the inhabitants, you befriended them. Then you worked together to repair the ship and turn it into some kind of mobile research facility." "That is correct," Deho replied. "And these Valdrek are the last survivors of their species." "The last survivors of their homeworld," Kale corrected, "but not the last of our people. We carry the genetic heritage of our entire race. With proper resources, we can rebuild our civilization." Commander Choi leaned back in his chair. "Show me." What followed was the most important presentation of Deho's life. Working together, he and the pack demonstrated their hybrid technology. They showed genetic samples that could produce crops capable of growing on dozens of different world types. They displayed manufacturing systems that could build entire cities from raw materials. Most importantly, they revealed their cultural integration project. Humans and Valdrak working together, each contributing their unique strengths to create solutions neither could achieve alone. "This is revolutionary," admitted Commander Choi's science officer, Dr. Sarah Kim. "The biological adaptations alone could solve food security problems for a dozen colonies." "The engineering applications are equally impressive," added Chief Engineer Park Min-ho. "Their ship systems are 50% more efficient than our best designs." But Commander Choi remained skeptical. "What is your ultimate goal?" "To find a world where we can establish a colony," Zira explained. "Not just for Valdrek, but for anyone who wants to be part of our community. We believe that cooperation between species leads to stronger settlements than any single race can build alone." "You want to create a mixed colony, human and alien?" "Human. And Valdrak and anyone else who shares our values," Deho said. "We have proven that different species can work together. We want to build something that has never existed before." Commander Choi was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "There are regulations about this sort of thing. Unauthorized contact with alien species, sharing of technology, operating modified vessels without proper documentation." Deho's heart sank. He should have known it would be too good to be true. "However," Choi continued, "there are also regulations about abandoning crew members. Captain Bo-Ra committed a serious crime when she left you to die. She has been arrested and is awaiting trial." "I do not want revenge," Deho said quickly. "This is not about revenge. This is about justice, but more importantly, it is about precedent." Choi stood and began pacing. "What you have accomplished here could change everything. The cooperation between species, the technological advances, the possibilities for future exploration and colonization." He stopped and looked directly at Kale. "I need to ask you something important. Do your people have any interest in formal contact with human government?" Kale exchanged glances with his packmates. "We are the last of our kind. We have no government to represent. But we would be honored to establish peaceful relations between peoples. Then I am prepared to make you an offer. The salvage fleet has been tasked with finding suitable worlds for new colonies. We have located 17 planets that meet basic habitability requirements but need extensive development. Would you be interested in selecting one as your new home?" "What would be the terms?" Vex asked suspiciously. "Full autonomy. You would govern yourselves according to your own laws and customs. In exchange, you would share your technological advances with human colonies and accept human settlers who want to join your community. Deho could hardly believe what he was hearing. You are offering us our own world? I am offering you a chance to build the future you have been working toward, Choi replied. But I need to see more proof that this partnership can work on a larger scale. Over the next week, members of the salvage fleet crew visited the Eternal Promise in small groups. They worked alongside the Iron Pack on various projects. They ate meals together in the ship's dining hall. They learned about Valdrak culture and shared stories of human traditions. The transformation was remarkable. Initial fear and suspicion gave way to curiosity and respect. Human engineers marveled at Valdrak precision and attention to detail. Valdrak scientists were fascinated by human creativity and willingness to experiment. Several crew members from different ships approached Deho privately. Is it true that they accept anyone who wants to join their pack? Asked Lieutenant Chun Min-soo, a communications officer who seemed tired of military life. As long as you share their values, Deho confirmed. Hard work, loyalty to the community, and dedication to building something better. What about families? Could I bring my wife and children? They love children. The pack sees them as the future. By the end of the week, 17 members of the salvage fleet had requested permission to transfer to the Eternal Promise. Commander Choi was not surprised. This always happens when people see something better, he told Deho. They want to be part of it. The formal ceremony took place in the main cargo bay of the Stellar Dragon. Representatives from both species stood together as Commander Choi read the official agreement that would make the Iron Pack humanity's first official alien allies. This document establishes the Valdrak colony as an independent settlement under the protection of the Terran Colonial Alliance, he announced. It grants full rights of citizenship to any human who chooses to join the colony and recognizes the Iron Pack as the legitimate government of their new world. Kale stepped forward to place his paw print on the document alongside Deho's signature. We accept these terms, the pack leader declared, and we pledge to build a colony that honors both our peoples. As the ceremony concluded, Deho felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Dr. Kim, the science officer. You realize what you have started, do not you? She asked. I fixed a broken ship, he replied simply. No, you fixed something much more important. You fixed the idea that different species cannot work together. That is going to change the galaxy. Looking around at the mixed crowd of humans and Valdrak celebrating their new alliance, Deho began to understand what she meant. This was bigger than one ship or one pack or even one colony. This was the beginning of something that could reshape civilization itself. The world they chose was perfect in its imperfection. Kepler 442 hung in space like a blue-green marble, its surface covered in vast oceans and small continents. The atmosphere was breathable for both humans and Valdrak. The soil was rich with minerals but empty of complex life. It was a blank canvas waiting for artists to create something beautiful. We will call it Haven, Kale announced as the Eternal Promise entered orbit. A place where anyone can find safety and purpose. The first year was harder than anyone expected. Building a colony from nothing was exhausting work, even with their advanced technology. They had to establish manufacturing facilities, grow food, construct housing, and set up communication networks. Every day brought new challenges that required creative solutions, but they were not alone. The 17 humans who had joined them from the salvage fleet brought essential skills. Lieutenant Chun Min-soo became their communications expert, maintaining contact with other human settlements. Chief Petty Officer Rachel Santos knew hydroponic farming and helped establish their food production systems. Dr. Alan Foster was a geologist who mapped mineral deposits across their new world. More importantly, they brought their families, watching Valdrak cubs play with human children was one of the most beautiful things Deho had ever seen. The young ones adapted to each other instantly, creating games that required both species to participate. They invented a new language that mixed human words with Valdrak sounds, developing their own unique culture. The children are our greatest success, Elder Rene observed during one of their planning meetings. They do not see differences between species. They just see friends. The colony grew steadily. Every few months, another ship would arrive carrying people who had heard about Haven and wanted to be part of something new. They came from failed colonies, overcrowded stations, and dying worlds. Each group brought their own skills and traditions. Adding to the growing community, there was Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a xenobiologist who helped develop new crops that combined Earth and Valdrek genetics. Captain Michael O'Brien, a former military officer, who organized their security forces and taught defensive tactics. Engineer Lisa Chun, who designed their water reclamation systems. But the most important arrival came 2 years after the colony's founding. Daiho was working in the main engineering complex when the communication alert sounded. A new ship was requesting permission to land. When he saw the name on the manifest, his hands began to shake. "This is the research vessel New Horizons requesting landing clearance," came a familiar voice over the radio. "We have a team of terraforming specialists who would like to discuss collaboration opportunities." Park Hyun-soo had come to Haven. Daiho ran to the landing pad, arriving just as the ship's ramp lowered. His sister stepped out, looking exactly the same but somehow older and wiser. Behind her came a team of scientists and engineers. "You built all this?" she asked, looking around at the gleaming colony that stretched toward the horizon. "We built it," Daiho corrected, gesturing to include the mixed crowd of humans and Valdrak who had gathered to welcome the newcomers. Hyun-soo spent the next week touring every facility, asking detailed questions about their construction methods and environmental systems. She was particularly impressed by how they had integrated natural and artificial systems to create a self-sustaining ecosystem. "This is not just a colony," she told the Colony Council during her final presentation. "This is a prototype for a new kind of civilization. You have proven that different species can not only coexist, but create something better together than either could build alone." She turned to Kale, who was serving as the colony's elected leader. "My team would like to propose a partnership. We can help you expand to other continents on this world and eventually to other worlds entirely. In exchange, we want to study your methods and share them with other colonies." "What do you have in mind?" Kale asked. "A terraforming project unlike anything ever attempted. Instead of forcing worlds to support one type of life, we create environments that can adapt and evolve. Worlds that can be home to any species that wants to live there." The vote was unanimous. Haven would become the headquarters for the most ambitious terraforming project in human history. Over the following months, new ships arrived almost weekly. Scientists, engineers, farmers, artists, teachers, and families from dozens of different worlds. The colony expanded from a single settlement to a network of communities spread across 3 continents. Each settlement was different, designed around the needs and preferences of its inhabitants. Some were underwater cities for aquatic species. Others were built into cliff faces for people who preferred underground living. The mountain settlements used geothermal energy, while the coastal towns harvested power from the waves, but they were all connected by the transportation network that Daiho had designed. Maglev trains that could carry people and goods anywhere on the planet in hours. Communication systems that allowed instant translation between dozens of languages. Cultural exchange programs that helped each community learn from the others. "We are not just building colonies," Vex observed during one of their weekly pack meetings. "We are building a new form of civilization." The Iron Pack had evolved too. What started as 4 Valdruk and 1 human had grown into a governing council of 27 members representing 14 different species. They made decisions by consensus, with each voice carrying equal weight regardless of the speaker's origin. The breakthrough came in year 3. Dr. Hyun-soo's team successfully created the first adaptive biosphere on an uninhabitable world. Using techniques developed at Haven, they transformed a barren rock into a living world that could support multiple forms of life. Simultaneously, the news spread throughout human and alien space like wildfire. Suddenly, every government wanted to learn about Haven's methods. Trade delegations arrived weekly. Diplomatic missions established permanent offices in the capital city. "We have become something we never planned to be," Deho said to Kale as they watched another transport ship land at the spaceport. What is that? Important? Kale laughed, a sound that still surprised humans who heard it for the first time. No, little brother. We have become what we always were. A family? We are just a bigger family now. The greatest test came when the Terran Alliance formally requested that Haven serve as the host for the first Interspecies Colonial Conference. Representatives from 43 different species would gather to establish standards for mixed species settlements. This is what we work toward, Elder Rene said during the planning sessions. Not just the survival of our own people, but the creation of a future where all peoples can thrive together. The conference was a spectacular success. For 2 weeks, Haven hosted beings from across the galaxy. They shared technologies, established trade agreements, and created frameworks for peaceful cooperation. But the most important moment came during the closing ceremony. A young human child, no more than 6 years old, approached the podium where all the alien delegates were seated. In the mixed language that had developed at Haven, she asked a simple question: why do the grown-ups make it so hard to be friends? The silence that followed was profound. Then one by one, delegates from every species began to laugh, not at the child, but at the truth she had spoken. Perhaps, said the Altarian ambassador, we should let the children teach us how to build the future. 5 years after Deho had been abandoned on a dying alien ship, he stood in the observation deck of Haven's central tower. Below him stretched a city unlike any that had ever existed. Humans and Valdrak walked side by side with dozens of other species. Children played in parks designed by cooperative effort. Artists created sculptures that celebrated the beauty of diversity. Zira joined him at the window, her cybernetic leg gleaming in the afternoon sun. Do you ever regret what happened? She asked. Being abandoned by your original crew? Deho considered the question. No, if the Aura had not left me behind, none of this would exist. The Iron Pack would have died alone on their ship. The colonization techniques would never have been developed. Thousands of worlds would remain empty. So, you think it was destiny? I think it was choice. Every step of the way, we chose to build instead of destroy, to include instead of exclude, to fix what was broken instead of throwing it away. Kale's voice came over the communication system. All pack members to the main conference room. We have received an interesting message. They gathered in the room, where so many important decisions had been made. On the main screen was a transmission from the edge of known space. It showed a damaged ship drifting near a dead star, sending out a distress signal. The crew is from a species we have never encountered before, Kale explained. Their ship is failing. They have perhaps days before life support shuts down completely. How far away are they? Deho asked. 3 days by fast ship. Then we go help them, said Nick simply. That is what we do. It could be dangerous, Vex. Warned, we know nothing about these beings. They might not be friendly. Neither were we when Deho first found us, Zero pointed out. But he chose to help anyway. The vote was unanimous. The Iron Pack would once again venture into the unknown, to help strangers in need. As they prepared for departure, Deho felt the familiar excitement of a new challenge. The Eternal Promise had been refitted once again, now equipped with the most advanced rescue and diplomatic equipment in the galaxy. Ready for another adventure? Little brother? Kale asked as they watched the stars stream past the viewing ports. Always, Deho replied. After all, there are always more broken things to fix. Behind them, Haven continued to grow and prosper. Proof that sometimes the most important discoveries come not from exploring the unknown, but from learning to work together with the people you find along the way. The Iron Pack was heading out to rescue another group of stranded travelers. But more than that, they were carrying with them the knowledge that cooperation was stronger than conflict, that building was better than destroying, and that families could be found in the most unexpected places. In the depths of space, another miracle was waiting to begin.